Hey, Matt Priest here. Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Shoot and Show podcast. I'm your host this week. I'm very excited to share with you a conversation I recently had on the Obsessive Sneaker Disorder podcast, otherwise known as OSD, with my dear friends Sean Williams and Dee Wells. These guys started this podcast back in 2007. And so Shoe and Show really is standing on the shoulders of giants as it relates to shoe industry, shoe business focused podcasts. And so these guys invited me over to talk all things, obviously trade, tariffs, and President Trump. But we also broke down some of my favorite sneakers of all time, some of the hip hop music I listen to, a variety of different things. And so this is part one. I hope you really enjoy it. And I want to thank my friends, Sean and Dee, for giving me the permission to cross-pollinate this audio of our conversation across the Shoe and Show platform. So without further ado, here you go.
Well, welcome back to OSD Obsessive Sneaker Disorder. Dee Wells in the house. We're going to be joined by our other co-host, Sean Paperchaser Williams, soon. But man, we have a great show in store for you. You're going to love this one. We're going to want you to like and subscribe, but of course, post your comments about the show. So we're going to talk sneakers, the culture, retail, tariffs, and then some. But more importantly, our guest of honor, the man with the plan, and maybe 50 grand. That's a little hip hop. We all remember. Matt Priest, welcome to the show. It's so good to see you. Happy New Year.
Dee, thank you so much. I've been wanting. I didn't think I was cool enough to be on OSD. I run a little podcast that is totally kind of drafting on the trail that you guys have blazed, called Shoe and Show. And I was like, I wonder if someday I can get up and be with the big boys and big girls at OSD. And here I am. So I've made it, my friend. I'm here. Absolutely. And I'm so excited.
Absolutely, so good to have you on the show. Matt, you're in a not a precarious position, but you wear so many different hats.
Yeah.
I mean, I see you. I love when I turn on the TV and I'm watching CNBC or CNN or one of these news shows. I'm like, oh, I know him.
Right.
And then at the same time, we've hung out at, be it shoe events, the Black Footwear Forum. I mean, your role as president and CEO of FDRA, like, just give people an overview of what does that even entail, and how did you get into that role? How did that begin?
Yeah, so great question. We're an organization that's been around 81 years, Dee, and we represent 95% of the industry, and I'm only the third chief executive in 81 years. So once you get this job, it's like Hotel California, you never check out, right? And so I'm a lobbyist. I'm one of those evil lobbyists that people know about. I am a policy guy. I cut my teeth in the policy space on Capitol Hill. I worked at the Commerce Department on shoe and apparel and textile trade policy. And then in February of 2009, I got this job. And we are a chamber of commerce for the footwear industry. We are making our companies more competitive. We're helping them protect their IP. We're helping them try to lower tariffs, which we'll get to. We're helping them to understand retail and e-commerce and chemical safety and labor regulations. I mean, you name it, we got our hands dirty in it. And it's footwear, sneakers. I mean, I love sneakers. I love shoes. And so it was like a match made in heaven for me. I don't know how FDRA feels about it, but I'm feeling great. And I'm loving the gig that the industry has afforded me.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk sneakers for a little bit. Like, when you talk about your history, with footwear, I know you're a sneakerhead, but like, where did it begin for you? What was that like entry point? What was that pair of sneakers that you kind of latched onto and observed?
Yeah, so there's some pictures of me when I was like 5 or 6 where I'm rocking Cortezes. I'm in 47, 48 this year. But it really, the moment in history when I look back and I was really into sneakers was in 1989. My father was in the Marine Corps for 27 years. Shout out to all you Marines, Semper Fi. And we were transferred up to the DC area the summer I turned 12. And so my father was the one I always asked to help me buy shoes. And so he picked up, for our sneakerheads, what was dropped in 89. the Jordan 4 Fire Reds. And so he got them for me. Now, Dee, the problem is I wasn't a Jordan guy.
Okay.
I loved Magic. I still love Magic. They just come off back-to-back championships. I just was a Magic guy. He had a big smile. He looked like he enjoyed playing. Jordan always looked like pissed and angry at his teammates and just super competitive. And Magic was having a party. It was showtime, right? So I kid you not, I was going up an escalator at the Bloomingdale's at Tyson's Corner Mall in Vienna, McLean, Virginia, and a bolt was sticking out of the escalator, and it tore through the sidewalls of my Fire Reds. And my dad or my parents took me to like the Bloomingdale's customer service, and they were like, just go buy a pair and we will reimburse you. And so we walked to the Foot Locker in the mall, and you know what I did? I pulled a onesie on it and I bought some. This might be like sacrilegious to your viewers. I used the money and I bought some purple and gold weapons to replace my OG
I get it.
Jordan 4s. And I was happy and I was proud and I was back. I felt comfortable. And then I got locked into a Converse phase entirely. And I got the Magic. People might not remember Magic had his own line with Converse called the Magics. They had his signature on the side. I had Magics. And that preceded me to get LJ, the Larry Johnson Grandmama. I got the Aero with the Aero flights, I think they were called. The Cons that had like the gel in the back of them.
Exactly.
I was just locking it to Converse at that point. And so I couldn't hang with Michael for too long. Now, fast forward now, years and years and years, I have tons of Jordans. I saw a social media post where Magic Johnson's wearing an Air Jordan shirt. I'm like, the apocalypse is around the corner. But nevertheless, that's my sneaker story. And that's when I first fell in love with sneakers and the culture, basketball and the personality. So there you have it. That's my sneaker story.
So what do you think? I mean, that's an amazing story. The fact that you actually went from a Jordan 4 to a Converse weapon. I mean, talk about, it was a changing of the guard, right? At that time, 89 was such a pivotal year in the game of basketball. Like you said, the Lakers off of championships, Jordan and the Bulls trying to, make their ascent. They're going up against, of course, the Detroit Pistons and things like that. But that whole campaign, do you remember the whole Converse Choose Your Weapon campaign, Magic versus Bird?
Yep, back to back, holding the shoes in the hand, right? Yep.
I wish I had my poster, because I actually had that. Even though, I had Dominique Wilkins, Jordan, Barkley, but I actually had that poster that I would have up in my wall in college. And I would, this is the days of you would use Fun Tack to stick it to the wall because you didn't want to get hit by your, resident assistant or your hall director. So I have to find my original. But that whole campaign, I mean, and then fast forward, Converse actually took bits and pieces when they came out with their kind of a reissue of the Converse Weapons. And, for me, I'm a Celtics fan.
Mm-hmm.
I was a Celtics fan first. Kudos to my father, who was a Navyman and went from the Virgin Islands to Hawaii and ended up in Brooklyn, of all places. But he was a Celtics fan. So I had to get the black and white, the Larry Bird weapon.
Of course.
Right? So it was, Bird versus Magic. So, I mean, we can sit here and talk stories for days in terms of 1989, but what were you listening to? Do you have any, what were you listening to cassettes? What was there a particular song that you could think of that was big in 1989?
Dang, that's a really good question. Because I love all types of music. I'm huge into music. I have a lot of vinyls. I'm into vinyls right now and just rocking like Marvin Gaye's What's Going On in Vinyl. It's just like heaven on earth from an audio perspective.
Yeah.
I'm an old school hip hop guy.
Okay.
As I was entering into college a couple of years later, Tribe Called Quest was, peaking, right? And thoughtful, conscientious hip hop is really, really key to me. But I'd have to kind of cross-reference what was popular at the time to what that's a really good question. If it was Tribe, if it was Kool Moe Dee, I mean, if it was what was the hip hop group that was jazz, and they were only around a little bit, but they were
It's a Sonic, maybe.
no, I'll have to look it up, but
Okay.
but I think I had to probably be Tribe or even
Okay.
Hammer, MC Hammer, right? That was right there in that
That's
mix.
right there. Yeah, that sweet spot.
That's where we pray, man. I'm a praying man, so that was right up my alley. Not only Can't Touch This, but
Yeah.
Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him was actually
And
the
don't
second
hurt.
CD I ever bought in my life. So
Man. Yeah.
Hammer, it
Yeah.
had to be Hammer. I got to go Hammer.
Okay. All right. I mean, there was so many songs. I think of '89. I think of certainly like Public Enemy, Chuck
Yes.
D, Flavor Flav, like you said,
Yeah.
conscious rap, where it was talking about the plight, but also this art that was supposed to be a fad that all of a sudden just kept on blossoming and growing. And groups like De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, Common, and just go on MC Light and things like that.
Yeah, MC Light.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Fear of a Black Planet. That's like, I love Public Enemy. Fast forward to Harder Than You Think. That song, that mantra, that song, Chuck D's lyric in that, and just the call out from Flavor Flav about all the cities, DC's in there. I'm sure Boston's in there. When something's harder than you think, it's a beautiful thing. To me, that just I listen to that frequently as a reminder I'm going through hard stuff. That builds character and resiliency. And guess what? We're going to talk about it. There's some hard stuff happening. So, so Harder Than You Think is a beautiful thing. Thank you, Chuck D. Shout out to Chuck.
Chuck D, man, for real. Yeah. Yesterday, on the 15th of January, was the anniversary for the release of Self-Destruction, which was Boogie Down Productions and that whole kind of group. Yep. Like you said, Kumo D, Heavy G, of course, Dougie Fresh, MC Light's in there. There's a whole Just Ice. And you think about, again, what was going on at that time, what was happening in music, culture, art, and then certainly, in the world of sneakers. Like you, and we've talked about this off air, like me, you're probably watching these music videos on MTV and stuff like that, but you're also paying attention to what sneakers
100%
musicians are wearing. Like
100%.
See, Guns N' Roses and Axl Rose, wearing a pair of like Delta Forces back in the day, or Puma Clydes, and of course Converse Weapons and stuff like that. So it's amazing how, again, the world of footwear, particularly sneakers and fashion, take up a big part of our life. That's why here we are today with OSD.
It's so true. And it's a fully baked pie right now, D. So like we're at the, we know the outcome, but the ingredients were just emerging then, right? The confluence of all these things were just coming together. And that's when it's the most exciting, to be honest with you. That's when it's fresh and new. And, the Aerosmith Run DMC speaking of collabs, right? That collab, Walk This Way, where the two of them came together, that was another entry point for me into hip hop, right? Here was a heavy metal band or a rock band bringing in the godfathers of hip hop, and, merging those two things together, right? And I think a lot of that was the waters were really brackish, and it was cool because all these things were happening that were bringing all those elements together.
Absolutely. What's your you talked about the Converse Weapon. Is that your favorite sneaker, or if I say, Matt, give me your top 3 sneakers, like what are they these days?
Yeah, I mean, all the Jordan 4, those releases are probably the most nostalgic because they're just the staying power has just been phenomenal, right? And so I know people are listening to this thinking you're ridiculous. You traded in your 4s for some weapons, but you're saying that in 2025. So back off, right? So it's like it's more like at the moment, you're right. Jordan was ascending. He hadn't even won his first championship yet. That came against Magic in '91, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And so we were in that transition period, but those are just so iconic. Now in the sneaker caucus we have on Capitol Hill, that's Congressman Jared Moskowitz's favorite. Jordan 4s are like his favorite, right? That's all he wears. And so I think those are iconic. And I do, now we've had more re-releases on the weapons. I think we forgot about them for a while. I picked up a couple pair with some of the new drops. They even have the low top, purple and golds, which are nostalgic to me. So I'd have to go with those as well. It's the nostalgia. Like there's a lot of new things that are cool. The KDs are cool. The low top NBA trend is weird to me, but like KDs and the Currys and obviously LeBrons, those are all phenomenal. My daughter wears LeBrons when she plays, but they just don't speak to me like those old school ones. And that's just because it harkens back to a time when I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. It's like the height of life, right? In some regards. So the innocence.
Yeah. The innocence, black top courts, playing with your friends and saying, when are we meeting? You know, like when are we going to get this run in? So
yeah, right. Exactly right.
Man. If I were to come to your home right now, what sneakers are sitting by your front door?
Sneakers that are sitting by my front door are, of course, some house sneakers. I've actually I can't remember what they're called. They're Nike house shoes. They're like super padded. They dropped a couple years ago.
Okay.
I have those. I'm an outdoorsman guy. So there's some cool things. Merrell's dropping some cool Saucony's got some cool collabs that are out there. So I'm a big Wolverine, Merrell and Saucony guy. And so that would be by my front door. And then, you know what? It's 2025. I got some Crocs probably too, right? I'm sliding those on. Like I'm no shame. Like I represent all these brands, so I have no shame in any of it. But when I have to get out the door. Now, if I've got to do something, I do have a special pair of Jordans. I can't remember exactly what year they are. They're black. They've got the Hornets colorway, and they have CEO embroidered on the inside. So when Jordan ran the Hornets, he owned and ran the Hornets. They've got that on the inside of the tongue. And so those are my like executive Jordans, if you will, that I wear just to kind of keep it going. So, I got like 400 pairs of shoes, so there's plenty of options, my friend.
Plenty to pick from. Exactly.
Yeah.
Plenty to pick from. Man, if you could design a collaborative sneaker, what would it look like? What would you include for you, but then also outward facing towards the consumers that you certainly know?
I've had the opportunity with the advent of kind of Nike ID or some of these other opportunities with brands to at least put a little spin on them. I've had an opportunity to do that a couple different times. I designed a couple pairs of shoes using Nike ID for myself and my wife, some matching pairs of shoes for one of our anniversaries. Nice. I'm a man of faith, so I was at a church in Maine, and I took a picture of a stained glass window of Jesus pulling Peter out of the Sea of Galilee. I threw those on the sidewall of some high top vans, and I freaking went to the Sea of Galilee, and I took a picture of them at the Sea of Galilee with my shoes with Jesus at the Sea of Galilee. It was like, it was like this cool kind of reverb thing. And so I was able to do that. So I have a big picture of those hanging on my wall, and I break them out for special religious holidays. Yeah. And so that's been cool. There's some cool emerging brands out there. Unitas is a brand. Jonathan Isaac, who plays for the Magic, he had a certain stance on a political issue of our time, and one of his brands was like, we're done with you. And so his pastor was like, dude, just create your own brand. And he freaking went out there and did it. And so I've got a couple pairs of his shoes. I've seen him speak a couple times, and it'd be cool to do something with him. But that's the beauty of it. There's opportunity now to be your own artist. I'm close friends, as we all are, with Dr. Dee Wayne Edwards, and he's done a couple cool side things for me. So anyway, it's good to know people and creative people in high places, and I've had a lot of fun doing it.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Paperchaser is with us in the studio, and then some.
I am not worthy. I am not worthy.
Thank you for allowing me to be tardy to the Matt Priest party. I'm out on assignment, but now I'm back. Our buddy Steve Ridiculous Gordon out on assignment today. He'll be back. But Happy New Year, Matt. Happy to have you on here. We have been a long time in the making with you coming on OSD, so we're happy to have you on. And
good to be here.
I know Dee has already got you with the softball questions.
We're just talking, Coach. We were reminiscing about his Jordan 4 to Converse swap.
I'm gonna have to explain this real quick.
No,
I had Jordan 4s. I had a bolt tear through them at a Bloomingdale's in Northern Virginia, and they told me I could buy any pair I want. And I'm a Magic guy over Jordan, so I went and bought Converse Weapons, purple and gold. This was 1989, and I'm sure that, again, that's sacrilegious in today's environment, but back then it was
not to us.
I was holding on to 88. I was holding on to Showtime as long as I could.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'm still looking for an actual pair of LA Laker colored Weapons from '86. I'm still looking for it. That's one of the most elusive shoes right now. A good pair, anyway.
Yeah.
So it's nothing wrong with that over here. I mean, if you look right behind me here, you're talking about probably 4 decades of NBA shoes behind here.
Do you remember the Magic shoes? I'm not talking Weapons. I'm not talking Cons, but they were in like 1990, 91. They just had Magic on
the side.
Yeah, I had those too.
Yep, a little earlier than that. The Magic line I actually have right up there. If you look right over my head, you see the Dr. J line there. So yeah, we do history around here. We do vintage. You know.
Do you have the Grandmama Aeroflights?
Aerojams, yes, I do.
Aerojams, that's right.
Yeah, Aerojams in
here.
Those
are separating though, unfortunately.
Yep, we have Aerojams.
I don't know what that gel is in there. I don't ask questions, but I had that gel in the back. Remember that?
Yeah, React juice.
React juice, yeah.
React unfavorably if you touch that.
Did you hear or did any of you see the interview that Larry Johnson did on All the Smoke podcast, where he tells the story of a campaign that Larry Bird, Magic Johnson were involved with Converse and him?
Incredible if that would have happened.
And and I'll give you the short abbreviated version, Matt. Okay. It was basically a picture of someone on a gurney or operating table, and they're adding different. It's Magic and Bird adding different pieces, and it's got to do this. Is they adding a jump shot, a powerful blah blah blah, and adding all these ingredients.
Yeah.
And then at the end, they look at each other and they go, "So what do we call him?" Well, and Larry Bird goes to Magic. Well, you got to call him Larry. And Magic goes, well, you got to call him Johnson. And then
that is unbelievable.
And then he would have, sat up from the gurney.
And it was Grandmama.
as Grandmama, Larry Johnson, for this Converse, for this Converse.
That wrote itself. That's brilliant.
Whoever came up with that and didn't greenlight that for whatever reason, they missed the boat. I'm sure they're kicking themselves in the ass.
Yeah.
Because it couldn't have played out any better. When he shared that story, I was like, talk about all-time great commercial.
That was hiding in plain view. Like that was a no duh.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one of the players said no to it. I think it was Larry Johnson, Larry Bird that said no to it.
Sounds like a Bird no. That he's a little bit more buttoned up, I guess.
Larry was, and I have to agree with you. I bet you it was Larry. Because I even heard stories about the whole Larry, and Magic Johnson, choose your weapon, on the basketball court in French Lick, Indiana. Mm-hmm. Larry didn't want to do it. He's like, I'm not shooting any commercials, but Converse had already obviously cut a bunch of checks. And they're like, no, we need you to do this. Like, you guys are the face of the league. Yeah. Which they were. I mean, they talk about saving the NBA and taking it to the next level. I mean, the timing of it. And you watch any documentary about, the early days of the NBA, ABA, and all that stuff like that. We know how much it changed. But Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, they changed the game. Truly,
they totally changed the game. And Larry Bird had to change a heart because he didn't play horse. He played horse with Michael Jordan for McDonald's, right? So that
exactly.
Remember that? Remember that ad campaign?
Yeah. That was really good, man.
That was good.
Yeah, but Larry Johnson. Go figure. Larry Johnson. Yeah,
that would have been incredible.
That would have been incredible.
Missed opportunity.
That would have been incredible.
So Matt, as we switch, we could sit here and talk sneaker culture and touch points and years and commercials that are missed opportunities left and right. But as your role as CEO, FDRA. We talked, you mentioned at the top of the show, lobbyists, you're out there basically pounding the pavement.
Yeah,
So,
man. I'm lobbying for kicks.
Lobbying for kicks,
brother.
Talk about that. Like, what are you seeing? Like, what's in front of us right now from a retail standpoint? But then, what are you looking at? Because I know you and FDRA are looking long term as well.
Yeah, great question. It's on the eve of the inauguration. It's on everybody's minds, and we're an industry that's 99% imported, right? So when an American consumer goes and buys a product, 99 times out of 100 when it comes to shoes, it's going to be imported. And so with that comes import duties, and we pay $4 billion a year in import duties, which is about a $12 to $15 billion additional cost on American consumers that is paid because of those tariffs. And so we spend a lot of time advocating against tariffs and trying to make the incoming Trump administration understand that when you add costs at the border paid by American companies, it's going to drive up costs for consumers. The math is inevitable, right? So for us, there's a lot of uncertainty since the election. No matter where anyone falls politically, from a personal perspective, we kind of check that stuff at the door. We talk about trade in a partisan way, but everything else, people have their views, and we respect those views, and they have the right to them. But when it comes to trade, we're going to be anti-tariff. That's just how it boils down to the impact on an industry. And we've spent a lot of time, we've done tons of interviews, we've done polling to try to capture insights into how Trump voters think about tariffs. Now, they like tariffs, but spoiler alert, they don't like shoe tariffs. And so we put that out in the marketplace. But as the industry's advocate, we are out there trying to drive a narrative that if they go down a road with tariffs, that they're not broad-based, that they're surgical, they're tactical, and they're focused in on national security items, for example. So we'll all find out very soon what the plan is. There's a lot of rumor, but it looks like there'll be some kind of broad-based tariffs, particularly on goods from China, up, anywhere from 10% upwards. And we just are trying to figure out the timing for that. And then our members are trying to figure out, okay, what do I do on the costing side? And when does that hit the consumer at retail?
Right. And it's no serendipitous play on why we have you on at this particular time.
Right.
With the incoming administration about to transition. This is the second time you're going through this.
It is.
Right? This is the second time. And I think one of the things that is sort of a difference maker this time over last time in terms of the retail landscape is consumer behaviors have changed.
Yes.
And it has affected brick and mortar, right?
Yep.
So what are you hearing, and what is the feedback? What has the feedback been from your members in terms of how this is going to really hurt more now as opposed to in the first Trump administration where sneaker prices went up 15, 20, 25% in some cases?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sean. I mean, look, the biggest change is the consumer behavior, to your point, but it's also consumer mentality. The consumer is now just beaten down by inflation. It's not just on sneakers, it's across the board, right? I don't have to tell you guys, eggs and T-shirts and vacations and flights, everything is more expensive. When the guy comes and fixes your water heater, more expensive. So we are now in this environment where, at least from most political observers, the president won because of the kind of the frustration with inflation. And so our messaging is like, look, you might have gotten away with it the first time around because we had been in about 12 years of deflationary activity, meaning prices had not gone up, they'd come down in some regard, and we really had no inflation. But that was then. This is now. It's like a totally new lifetime in the sense that costs have gone up across the board, and they've been compounded. Right? It might be a 2 or 3% or 4 or 5% a year, but year after year after year, you're right, Sean. That's 20, 25% on products, and they better tread lightly. Like we're telling them, like, we want to help you tamp down inflation. Let's not raise prices on people. That's like the antithesis of inflation. And I think that. I think they're sensitive to that, but they're going to try some things. And I think there's some political downsides to how sensitive now and how awake consumers are to the impact of inflation on their bottom lines.
Yeah, I think that considering, like you said, everything's gone up, right?
Yeah.
Give me a second to play Tariffs for Dummies
Okay.
and explain exactly how, within this sense, people are going to be affected.
Let's do it. Tariffs for Dummies 101. All right. So sneakers typically, for the most part, have a 20% duty on them, no matter where they come from. We have a couple free trade agreements with like Mexico, but we're all the sneaker producing countries, Vietnam being the top one, Indonesia number 2, China number 3. China's our top supplier of all footwear, but let's talk sneakers. So a shoe is shipped to you. It's a $20. It's shipped into the U.S., brought in by an American company. Let's say it's $20, what we call FOB, freight on board. That's the price it costs when it hits the border at the U.S. border. Let's say there's a 20% tariff on it. That's $4 that's tacked on that. So let's just say that 20 becomes 24, 25 for argument's sake. That $25 shoe is then sold by the wholesaler to the retailer for about 50-ish. So you're doubling at that point. That $5 is $10 then. That's a $10 additional cost because of the tariff that's baked into that. The retailer then turns around. All this is super general math, but gives people an idea of the vibe of it.
Yep.
That retailer turns around and sells that shoe for $100.
Right.
So that $10 shoe is now, that's additional $20 on top of the shoe. That one pair of shoes, just because of the tariff, it's baked into the cost of goods as it makes a way, as it passes from hand to hand, because everyone's trying to maintain their margins to be profitable and stay in business.
Right.
So you can see how very quickly these costs are compounded. And that's the real world impact. And because we have a hyper competitive industry, the moment you take that out of the equation, you're going to see a lot more competition on pricing just to drive those down. And now a lot of the sneakers that we buy, the FOB is higher than $20. So, you can ramp that up a little bit more, but it gives you the general sense of how the tariff works.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Shoe-In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.